thank you for your presence here. It's clear that since the Rome Statute was adopted, the world is a less primitive world, and yesterday was the implementation of these new rules. An international court investigated the suffering of some of the most vulnerable members of humanity, children in war zones. The court provided a fair trial to the suspect and convicted him. It is a victory for humanity. Now, the world, the states, the civil society, have to consolidate this evolution. Our office is doing its part. We're planning to contact all our witnesses in order to explain to them the details of the conviction. You have to understand that, like Tomás Lubanga, most of our witnesses are members of the HEMA community, and they are considered by many traitors. So they risk their life to tell the judges their painful experiences. We admire their courage, and we show appreciation for what they have done for justice. I would like to pay a special tribute to the former child soldier witness. They were ready to transform their painful experiences into evidence. We know how they struggle each night to overcome their past, to move on from horrors they suffer. On this topic, the judges have decided that on 18th of April, the parties have to present their general views on reparations. So the world will know more about the suffering of the victims in Italy. On the same day, 18th of April, the prosecution will also present its request for punishment. And the question here is, what is the proper retribution for someone who has forever affected the life of so many children? How many years? If we're going to ask for 1 year per child, we should go far beyond the maximum of 30 years established by the statute. As we indicated in our opening statement, we will seek a sentence close to the maximum. Let me also clarify some specific aspect of the decision. The majority of the chamber, 2 votes, Judge Fulford and Judge Blatter, state that gender nature of the crimes could be taken into consideration during the sentence. Judge Oyo Benito make a dissident, and Deputy Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, who was in charge of the gender aspect of the policy of the office, will explain this discussion between the judges. But it's important to understand the issue was included in the decision, discussed it, and we'll further discuss it. Next step for us. After review of the evidence, we found that our evidence is enough to present charges for murder and rapes against Bosco Ntaganda. We'll do that. As you know, he was in those days the number 3 of Tomás Lubanga militia. And in 2006, an international criminal court arrest warrant was issued against him for the same count, the same charges of child soldiers. What we are planning to do is add killings and rapes against him. But Bosco Ntaganda case is showing the cost of impunity. After 6 years, he's still at large. And in the meantime, he became the leader of one of the most dangerous militias in the kibbutz area, allegedly committing massive rapes in the kibbutz. Currently, is a general in the DRC army. The office is planning a visit to Kinshasa to meet President Kabila. We do both. Thanks President Kabila for his strong commitment and support in the Tomás Lubanga case, but also request the immediate arrest of Mr. Bosco Ntaganda. He could not be a general in the DRC army. It's time to arrest him. What next? What we believe is, and it's something that I like to clarify, this court will identify the individual responsibility of some perpetrators, but the impact of the court will depend on other actors. How 120 states members of the court react to this decision. And we believe it's time to include a new dimension in the work of the Rome Statute. Not just Minister of Justice or Minister of Foreign Affairs. We believe Minister of Education and teachers should start to work on the issues that the court presented. They should start to present and analyze how to teach in our schools child soldier problems. In order to see how to organize that, I took advantage of a meeting, a visit I did to Qatar 2 weeks ago, and I met Sheikha Mosa of Qatar. She is the UNESCO Special Envoy for basic and higher education. She clearly stated that the world cannot continue to ignore the impact that armed conflicts and international crimes have on the right on education. Staff of Qatar-based education above all, an organization that Sheikha Mosa chair, analyzes the information collected by the prosecutor in this case. And that is for us the way to proceed. We are not writing history inside the court, but the information we provide should be provided to those who write history, or those, like education above all and Sheikha Mosa, are working to improve education. So we can provide information to them in order to improve their plans. And that's what we did. And so we provide to them not just the evidence, all the information we had about how the impact affected solely the schools. And they found that Lubanga crimes not just affected the individual child soldiers abducted, because they interrupt, delayed, or denied the right to education to all the Ituri children. The other children stopped going to school for fear of being abducted. So it's a destruction of the entire generation education. Because Mr. Lubanga, these children lost out on their education. And interesting, the example they are using it as an example of the devastating effect that international crime have on education. According to Education for All report published by UNESCO in 2011, 28 million children of primary schools aged in conflict zone are out of school. We need to include these kids in the educational system, and that's a work that could complement the court decision on Lubanga. In order to see how to engage other actors, we had discussions with the mayor of The Hague in order to discuss how to integrate an educational point of view into the city effort to be the center of peace and justice. We believe it's important to invite Ministers of Education from the 120 state parties to discuss with them how they will include in their schools the issue of child soldiers. I want my children learning about child soldiers in their schools, how they will learn about the role of International Criminal Court, and what skills our children need to avoid or to manage violence. That the issue we believe now should be discussed by the Minister of Education of the state parties. Any impunity for these crimes is not just about doing cases that we are doing, it's about integrating this concept into the general policies. And that for us is the next challenge. Focus what else states can do to prevent these crimes. Madame Bensouda will give you some details of the issue of the gender aspect of the child soldiers crime.
Training boys to rape as well as using girls as sex slaves were gendered aspects of the reality of child soldiers. Judge Fulford and Blackman considered that the issue could be discussed during the sentencing phase. Judge Odio Benito dissented on this aspect of the judgment and agreed with the prosecution that gender crimes were embedded in the recruitment of children and in their use in hostilities. Judge Odio Benito found that the invisibility of sexual violence in the legal concept leads to discrimination against the victims of recruitment. Sexual violence is one of the main crimes committed against girls, and their illegal recruitment is often intended for that purpose, even though they also often participate in direct hostilities. And the office will continue to liaise with the UN SRSG to stop the practice to abduct girls who are used as sex slaves in this crime. The world has to prevent this crime. Thank you.